Start with.
Well, so what was it like to be the first female president?
It was a heavy weight of responsibility, but at the same time it was great fun because I had a fantastic team behind me. Rabbi Silverman was very encouraging in the beginning and encouraged me actually to take it on because I had grave doubts about myself as to whether I was good enough, capable enough. And he was the one who actually convinced me that it was to some extent a duty to do this, but also I was more than capable. So I had Rabbi Silverman, and then there were people like Terry Wander and Phil Rosenshine and all the guys on the board, the finance committee. I can't begin to name them all because you don't have time. So I think I was very lucky in an era where the time was right. It did start at a time when members of the community were starting to discuss egalitarianism in our synagogue. And Rabbi Silverman was not against it, not wholly in favour, because he was concerned that we had to take it a step at a time in stages because it had the ability to be very divisive for the congregation, and that possibly could have been the case. So I became vice president, and that meant at that time one came in and you were vice president number 3 for 2 years, and then number 2 for 2 years, number 1 for 2 years, and then one became president. So here I am, the first woman president, which, as I said, was a great responsibility on my shoulders. I felt that I did not want to take the place of a man. I was a woman, but in my own right, but I didn't want to take the place of a man. I did not want to have an aliyah. I did not want to wear a kippah, and I did not want to wear a talit. And Rabbi Silverman was very understanding of that, and she said, you don't have to. So I remember my very, very first Yom Kippur, and I'm sitting on the bema and I'm thinking to myself, how can I last a whole day without, once again, Rabbi Silverman was very supportive and I managed it. I did find afterwards that there was a little bit of what might have been called a football a pool. Will she last or won't she? And I did, and it was great. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then my very first Sukkot was a somewhat funny story because Gloria Silverman actually had taught me to read, because in Australia I was Orthodox and the women weren't necessarily taught to read Hebrew. So Gloria had established, I'm digressing here, is that okay? Gloria had established the Sisterhood Academy of Judaism and started a class to read Hebrew from the Siddur, which I took, and I was able to do that. So here I am on the bema, absolutely following every word. God forbid I would miss something and then lose my place because I had to turn the page at the right time. And Rabbi Silverman was also very good because he was there to kind of cue me if I didn't turn the page at the right time. So this was Sukkot, and I'm sort of sitting there very ladylike and following, and I felt a tap on my shoulder and looked up, and Rabbi said, I think you will open the ark. And I said, who, me? Rabbi Silverman said, who else? So I kind of did, and it worked, and this was good. So that was just one thing there. Talking about Rabbi Silverman, he was the most amazing person. But he was also a human being. He was a man, and but he was very, very shy. But the warmest brown eyes, the most incredible sense of humour, which I enjoyed, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Talking about me, did we start off talking about me as first woman president? I think we did. So one or two of my first addresses, I think the congregation it was wonderful standing up there and talking to the congregation. I think sometimes I maybe had an accent at that time, and they liked to listen to the accent. I'm not too sure they always heard what I said. However, about, my first time I said, well, here I am, God hasn't smitten us, the roof hasn't fallen in. Bad thing to say, because about 3 or 4 weeks later, the congregation will remember we got the biggest hole in the roof. Water came pouring in. What are we going to do? Anyway, we had to raise a lot of money. It was going to cost $98,000. Where's it going to come from? But because I was kind of a researcher and an organised person, a good administrator, I think, I did all the researching and presented the congregation various options that we would have, various things we could do, what the costs would be, who we could get to do it. To make a long story short, sent out a letter because I thought that all of the congregation should have ownership with this. And Rabbi Silverman was a big person also on ownership. This is your shul, it's our roof, bread on our table kind of thing. So we sent out a letter, and each person would pay a percentage of their dues according to the percentage of the cost of the roof. And again, long story short, we actually ended up gaining in 1 year more than the roof had cost. But of course this was the support of everybody, because everybody at that time felt that sense of responsibility. So that was that story. Okay, I think that's enough of that.
Can you say a few words about Gloria Silverman and the impact she had on the shul?
Gloria Silverman had an incredible impact on the shul. She also was an amazing person. She was much more outgoing, much more obvious than Rabbi Silverman was. They had a very, very good marriage, a very, very good partnership. She was Rabbi Silverman's life was Gloria's life, but on the other hand, she very much was her own woman. She was a feminist, I would say, perhaps. Very, very clever, but also very kind, very understanding. She had an impact, I think, on the entire shul, on the women specifically. Gloria actually wrote me in to be president, only about sisterhood, which I was before I was president of the shul, and it happened about a year or so after I had come to Canada, and she sort of tapped me, and I think it was partly because I was keen and enthusiastic and willing, but also partly because, or mainly because there was nobody else willing to do it at that time. And so she was behind me all the way. She was always the backdrop, or what is it? What do you call it? Something of sisterhood. When presidents were hard to come by, after a while she found somebody. She ended up being president of sisterhood, and of course, sisterhood was a big achievement of Gloria. Also, the school, what she did in the school, and you'll have to find other people who can talk possibly more knowledgeably about all the things that she did in the school, but she was the school principal, she arranged the school board, and she was very active there. She was the first person to have a Hebrew high school with children after the age of bar mitzvah, where they stayed, I think it was till age 16. She had pizza lunches, so she had a great impact there. The other thing but apart from all the things she did actively, she also loved to travel and to kind of hike and do all these things, climb mountains, not very big mountains, but I would say mountains, and she liked to do all of these things. That she was very much a person in her own right, at the same time very much the rabbi's wife. She always critiqued his sermons. She was the one who read all the articles, Reader's Digest, goodness knows what, and she would clip out anything that she thought would be appropriate or relevant for Rabbi Silverman to incorporate. I think one of her biggest impacts perhaps would have been with the children in the school. They started off as young children. They started off, and she imbued in them, I think, a love of Judaism, a love of Hebrew, a love of learning. And I think, and then Camp Ramah too. She was very active in Camp Ramah and used to go up. The whole family went up there for the whole summer, Camp Ramah. She was very, very much involved in that. And I think to this day, some of the kids who were at Camp Ramah still very much related to what Gloria Silverman meant to them and what she did in their life. I think I've wrapped it up more or less. So she had her finger and was very, very impactful in every aspect of our synagogue, and her marriage to Rabbi. Yes.
Okay, can you say anything, maybe give me some good anecdotes about personalities that you interacted with during your time there, and as president, or even when you were executive director, like any good stories?
Oh, you know, to tell the truth, there are so many and so many funny ones, but now I've gone totally blank and can't think of anything. I think one comment, I came onto the board, Obby Goldblatt was president, I was sisterhood president, and I was one of the first women. So I came onto the board and went to executive meetings, again the first woman, in my my role as sisterhood president, and Obby Goldblatt was behind that. And then I was sisterhood president, he was president of the shul, so that was a great time because we sort of, sisterhood had really, really raised a lot of money, and it's a great shame that times have changed and generations have changed, and you can't repeat that, but it was very, very good at that time. Anyway, then I was elected onto the board in my right as a woman and not a sisterhood president. So that was another achievement, I guess. I have to say, I never ever in my life set out to be the first woman president. I never set out to be the first woman anything. It just kind of happened. But when I was being elected to the board, and then Terry Wonder, with whom I got on amazingly, and we thought alike, he suggested me for the finance committee, and that was a little bit unheard of also, to have a woman on the finance committee, and there were a few comments about that. But Terry, in his way, he said, I've got broad shoulders, and he did, of course. He was a big, big man, but he was a wonderful person, a very good man, and very, very caring of the synagogue. And he just said, very calmly, Norma thinks like a man, and I think she can do a good job. Well, of course, I did, and I think that was the highest compliment possibly that Terry could have paid me, or one of the highest. So that was interesting. Then I came onto the finance committee, a great group of men. There was Phil Rosenshine, Maud Krieger, Aaron Zajic, and Harold Goldblatt was part of it. I have to admit that when I first came on, I think there was smoking, and I'm an avid non-smoker. So I said, I can't come to committee meetings where they're smoking. I can't be in a room with smoking. So actually, I didn't ask anybody, but nobody smoked anymore. And also, some of the comments were quite blue. And I find I don't need to swear a lot, or at all really, because I have enough vocabulary. And I was uncomfortable with that, and then that stopped too. And I just respect everybody so much for respecting what made me comfortable. They were, and we just got on it was such fun. At the time when I was doing it, and I enjoyed it. When it came time to step down, I missed it. I truly did. And it was easy for it to be fun, and everybody had fun, and we achieved so much.